What drives you? What inspires you? Let's ignite your why. Welcome back to Ignite Your Why podcast. I'm your host, Austin T. Gullett, and we're here to have genuine conversations with authentic people to help amplify their voice and figure out what ignites their why. Today, we have the privilege to speak and catch up with Larry Willis II. Last time we heard from Larry was in season 1, episode 6, or 1.5. If you have not listened to that episode, make sure you go back and check it out before you listen to this one. The link will be in the description below, so make sure you check it out. With that being said, Larry, welcome back. How are you doing today, man?
I'm great, Austin. Thank you for having me back.
I'm so excited for this one because I'm not going to lie to you. When I first started this whole podcast journey, you were the first person that I recorded with that was out of state, like virtually. And I
Mhm.
really didn't know what the hell I was doing. I
Mm.
was so confused. I don't know if you remember, but I think we might have like FaceTimed and used voice memos and
Mhm.
was sending those files back and forth. And it was
We were.
just like,
I remember.
it was a struggle. Like, I don't know how we did it. I feel like we made it way more complicated than it needed to be. So it's kind of full circle for me. Like, to see my progress in that is just like, oh, like I was so shitty at this. And here we are now, like incorporating YouTube and just taking this podcast to the next level. So I'm so happy to have you back. There's so much that we need to catch up on. So, how have you just been, man? Like, what have you been up to?
I have been great. I've definitely had some ups and downs, for sure. I've, been going through some growing pains, in my journey. A lot has been going on with school. A lot has been going on in my personal life. So it's just been a lot going on, which I'll get into. Um, Getting closer to finishing my PhD,
Whoop,
hopefully.
whoop,
Crossed.
woo.
Excited for that. Um, so yeah, it's definitely been a lots of things going on since the last time that you had me on, Austin. So
I can only imagine, man. Because when we last, like, when your episode came out, it was actually February 18th of 2021. And here we are in April of 2023. And hell, like, my whole life has been different. So I can only imagine, like, what yours has been like. I remember when we were talking, like, you just started your program at Alabama's for your doctorate. And you were big on, like, teaching. And at the time, your passion was just like to be helping students and being able to relate to them, and kind of just help guide them into the right path.
mhm.
But before we get into that part, I do just want to ask you, like, how has your program been going? A lot of people, especially, like, I don't know what a doctorate program's like, but how did you manage that over the last 2 years, and just how's everything going with that?
Yeah. So for me, I've definitely had some hiccups. It has not been perfect. Um, right now, I am in the um, dissertation phase of my PhD program. So I took comps back in August of 2022. Well, technically in July of 2022, and then in August of 2022, I defended my comps and passed. So I passed comps in early August of 2022, and then I started my dissertation, proposing the dissertation. But first, I had to write a prospectus. So I wrote a prospectus, which is basically a condensed version of a dissertation proposal. And I
Hmm.
used that document to sort of brainstorm what I thought or believed I wanted my dissertation to be on. And I rewrote it over and over. So honestly, what I would tell students who are interested in pursuing a PhD, in any discipline, it doesn't really matter what the discipline is um if you're interested in pursuing a doctorate degree, you need to be thinking about what you want to write your dissertation on. I would say at least 6 months to a year in advance before of defending comps. So like 6 months to a year prior to defending comps, you need to be kind of thinking about what you want to write your dissertation on, because what
Sounds
happened
awful.
with me,
That sounds like so much
yeah,
work. I'm sorry. I don't know like how people do it. I give you props. I can't
yeah.
recall what was your master's program in exactly again. Not your
My
master's, your
master's,
doctorate. Your
my doctorate
doctorate. My
degree.
bad.
So, no, you're fine. My doctorate degree is in communication and information sciences.
Okay.
And then I have a concentration in organizational communication and instructional communication. So essentially my doctorate degree is interdisciplinary. So it's kind of like a crossover. It's definitely communication, but we have people, we all get, everyone in the communication and information sciences degree program at University of Alabama, walks away with the same PhD, but we have different concentrations. So some people are interested in journalism, and others like myself are more interested in communication studies, and I'm actually kind
Mhm.
of a hybrid because I'm interested in communication studies and higher education as well. So I'm interested in like pedagogy, so like teaching, course curriculum, and student engagement and things like that. So that's sort of where my research interests lie. Um, so yeah, our program is really more so like an interdisciplinary degree program.
Hey, I give you so many props because I sure in the hell could not go back to school. I sit here and say sometimes like, oh, like it would be cool to get a doctorate, but I feel like there's no point in me to get a doctorate because for what I do, it's not really necessary.
Mhm.
So props to you. I really do give you so many props for that. There is one question I do have for you because the
Okay.
last time we talked 2 years ago, you were very set in stone that you were like, can quote you directly. You're like, I cannot see myself doing anything besides teaching, right? So, is that statement today still true, or have things changed for you?
Things have changed. That statement is not that statement is not true today. I still enjoy teaching. I still enjoy, engaging with students, helping students, but I feel like I see myself doing that in a different way now. I think the way that I
Mhm,
do that looks very different. I want to do that more from a hands-on approach, rather than just being in front of the classroom teaching behind a podium. Um, so I want to I want to work in a more practical setting, a more hands-on setting. Um, so I don't know. I'll probably always be interested in teaching to some degree, but I don't want that to be the only thing that I do. I
right, you
feel like
wanna have, more hustles, you wanna have, like, a teaching
yes,
can kinda be, like, your side hustle in a sense to where, like, you can kinda do something else, like, your degrees are very, no offense, I feel like communication majors get mad when like like, your degree is very broad, but I feel
no,
like
it's
that's
true.
true, and, like, you can do excuse me, you can do so many things with it. So it's kind of like you're not set in like one path. Like you can kind of
Right.
branch out and kind of do different things, which I think is super
Absolutely.
interesting. So, like
Yeah.
earlier, you were mentioning how a lot has changed over the last 2 years for you in your professional life, but also your personal life. And when
Mhm.
I think back to your first episode, we talked a lot about like the COVID-19 pandemic because it was very fresh, very new. Um, we were still in this like funk of like, we don't know what the hell is going to happen. But also, like, I remember a big part of your story was growing up and just dealing with the bullying and people kind of like picking on you and kind of making you like I don't know how to really phrase this, but making you feel kind of like insecure in a
Mhm.
sense. But like I feel like over time, like you've learned how to grow from that and take those
Mhm.
experiences and really hone in on who you are. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about like what's been going on with you like personally over the last 2 years because you said that there's been a lot going on. So kind of want to pull it out of you. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. So, um, Where do I start? So uh, you mentioned insecurity, so that's something that I still struggle with to this day. It's I mentioned earlier kind of like growing pains, or just kind of things that I'm still working through, that I'm fighting through every day. So one thing for me is that I do battle with insecurity. Like, I'm a very sensitive person. um if someone even if someone's tone is short with me, or if someone you know makes a sarcastic remark directed towards me, I get very upset to
Hmm.
the point where I'll maybe cry, not like openly around people, but like, in private. It does, like, things really do hurt my feelings. And that, I think that goes back to, things that I experienced in my childhood that made me just kind of feel that sense of insecurity, and just feeling like I'm not adequate enough, feeling like I'm not um capable, I guess. I've always just kind of like had that sense of self-doubt, and I still have that today, but I'm able to manage it a lot better, and I push myself to strive for more, especially lately.
Hmm.
Um, so I keep going day to day regardless, but that's kind of where I'm at now with all of that.
Hey,
Um,
let me just say this, is just like it takes a lot of courage just to be open and honest right there, right? I totally understand where you're coming from because I've also been that kind of person who's been insecure and kind of care too much about like what other people think of me, when in reality, like we shouldn't care at all, because one, like we can't control other people's thoughts. We can't
right.
control what someone's going to say about you, what they think about you. What we can control is how we feel, right?
Mm,
Even though it's hard. I've kind of learned this over therapy, but I never want you to think that you aren't enough, because you are, right? You have so
thank
much
you.
strength,
Mhm.
you have so much power, and I want you to own that, right?
Thank
Like,
you.
don't give other people this power over you to minimize you or whatever it may be. Like, you are worth it. You have a purpose and you're here for a reason. And I
Mhm,
want you to remember that, right? Because think back, right? We're going to kind of do a little therapy session here, right? I want you to think back, right, to your childhood
mhm.
and the way you feel now when people say certain things. Because I can probably feel like you'll walk into a room and you can see Sally and Susie whispering about something, and you'll automatically think like, oh fuck, they're talking about me.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm,
But they could be talking like, "Oh, Larry has really cool glasses. Larry
mhm,
has really cool shoes." Or maybe they're not even talking about you at all. They could be talking about something completely different, right?
mm,
But what I want you to think back to is like when you're a child, like whose voice is it in your head that is saying those things, right? Making you think those things,
mhm,
right? My therapist always told me there's like this thing called the power of agreement, right?
mhm,
We have the power to agree with our feelings or how certain situations make us
mhm,
feel, right? So if you can acknowledge, like, okay, like, yeah, they're talking about me, but you don't have to necessarily agree with the thoughts that are in your head saying, like, oh shit, they're talking shit about me, like,
right,
blah, blah, you know what I mean?
right.
So it's definitely a process. It's not something that like changes over time. But it's definitely something that like I just wanted to share with you and kind of let you
No,
think about a
that's
little bit.
that's very true, and I agree with that. I think that our thoughts oftentimes, like the way we think about things, the way we interpret things, like we do have control over that, but um we don't realize that oftentimes that we have control over how we perceive, like,
Mhm,
certain situations, and how people, like, interactions that we have with people. um like, anytime, and I do have, like you mentioned, walking into a room and seeing like two people, and like they're whispering, or and they glance over at me, like, I do immediately assume sometimes that they are talking about me, and I usually perceive it in like a negative way, like they're saying something negative about me, or they're laughing
mhm,
at me, and I shouldn't do that, but it's like second nature. Like I do it. I mean, just initially it's just like an initial thought. Um, but I still um so I do still struggle. I mean, that's something that I'm still sort of battling with for sure. Um, so someone said something to me the other day, and it kind of hurt my feelings. And I just kind of thought about it the rest of the day,
Hmm.
and I cried a little bit. Um, and so that's something that just trying to get have better self-esteem and just more self-awareness, because I feel
Hmm.
like I kind of lack self-awareness sometimes. Like I don't see the fact, like I don't see the power that I have. I don't see, like, it's like I don't see myself. I see everyone else, but I don't see myself.
Hmm.
So
And I think
that's
sometimes it's hard to do that for ourselves sometimes, right?
Mhm,
We're our biggest critics. We are the hardest on ourselves because we know, and sometimes like we know like what we're capable of, but also it's so easy to compare, right? It's so
mhm,
easy to compare yourself to someone else. Like you can
mhm,
look over and see Johnny doing X, Y, and Z, and you're just like, damn, like
mhm,
why am I not like where he is or anything like that. But what
right.
you kind of need to remember is like your journey is unique to you, right?
Mm,
No one can tell you how to live your life, no one can tell you what to do. Like your journey is yours and you need to embrace every single step of the way, right? And
absolutely.
the thing with like the insecurities and things of that nature is like those things can be fixed, right? But like we have to like love ourselves and learn to love ourselves. It's hard, it's very hard to do, and it's not a process that can just change overnight, right?
Mm,
We have to be patient. Having patience is super super important, and it's probably something that everyone needs to have in life in general, right? No matter what you're doing, you just have to be patient because you're gonna have those ups and you're gonna have those downs and you're gonna go through all of these emotions, but it's
mhm,
how do you get back up and keep going, right? It's
right,
not about how many times we get knocked down, it's about how we get back up and continue to fight, right?
right.
So remember that it's like you have so much potential, right?
Mm,
But you have to find that within yourself, and the only person who can do that for you is you.
right. And I think that's something that I'm definitely having to learn too as I go, is that I feel like one thing in previous years, up until just recently, to be honest, is that I kind of like search for validation within other
Hmm.
people. Like if I say something, or just as an example, like if you and I are having a conversation, um, and I say something, and then at the end of that conversation, like later on, I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, should I have said this? Or I'll ask my mom or someone, like, should I have said this, or should I have said something else? And it could be anything. It could be like, um,
Hmm.
I mean, it could be anything. It could be like some type of presentation, a conference. It could be um, a like interview.
I
It could
totally I get what
be
you're saying. I'm thinking like when you're talking about this, I'm just like,
Mhm.
damn, I have these moments all the time after an argument. And I'm just like, frick, I should have said that. Like, why didn't
Right.
it come to me then? But I feel like
Mhm.
that's normal, right? It's normal
Mhm.
in everything that we do. We're always gonna kind of second guess
Mhm.
ourselves because we're like, we could have done better. I could have done this. I could have did that.
Right.
But honestly, like your best is different every single day, right?
Mhm.
Your best is not going to be the same as it was yesterday. Your best is not going to be the same tomorrow, right?
Mm.
But if you give your best every single day, that's all that really matters. And you have to remember that, right?
Like that.
Remember that your best is not always going to be consistent every single day.
Mhm.
But if you give 100 and not even 110%, because your best might be, oh, I can only give 30% of myself to this today
Right.
because that's just
So
where I'm
feel
at,
your
right?
best.
But that's okay because
Mhm.
that's still your best, right?
Right.
And I think we're so used to just people comparing and judging, and in reality it's just like you like I feel like I'm being kind of repetitive when I say this, is it's just like you cannot control what other people are going to say or think, right? As long as you know like I did my best, this is what I could give, then
Mhm.
that's really all you need, right? Just
Mhm.
live for you. That's
Absolutely.
really what it comes down to, is living for yourself and not for others.
Absolutely. That's all we can do. That's all we
Period.
can do is do. That's all we can do is just give the best version of ourselves as we can each day. Like you said, even if that's just
Hmm.
10, even if it's just 10%, even at 20, 30%. I mean, that's still the best we can give for that day. Like we all have days where it's like we're not feeling it, but we still keep going. We still strive to do what we can do.
You're
So,
preaching to the choir. Because I'm telling you, like, I think the biggest thing is just being transparent with yourself
mhm,
and letting people know, like, hey, like, I'm not feeling it today. Like, give
mhm,
me a little bit of grace. But it, just understanding and recognizing how you're feeling is huge.
mhm.
So I kind of want to lean into kind of like my next segment, and my favorite segment of all of this is just I'm huge on mental health, and we've kind of been talking about a little bit about that like recently. But like, just how have you, Larry, been taking care of Larry mentally?
So I, to be fully transparent, um, things have been good. Things could be better, but
Hmm.
things are. I'm grateful that things are as good as they are. Um, One thing that I'm doing to take better care of myself is taking my anxiety medication like I should each and every day. I used to be so bad about that, and but I'm doing a lot better with that now, and I am noticing a difference. I'm able to cope with stress. I'm able to manage my stress a lot better. Also, fully transparent. You know, my family has we kind of like a history with high blood pressure. So just
Hmm.
recently, I was diagnosed with hypertension. Um, and I started, I was prescribed high blood pressure medication. I don't remember the exact like name of it. It's probably something I can't pronounce, but that's okay. But
That's most medicines.
yeah, so I was prescribed that, and I've been taking it. um keeping my blood pressure down, and just those are two of the main ways that I've been taking better care of myself. Something else I've been doing is just when if something doesn't go 100%, like if the day is not perfect, if something happens that upsets me, or just whatever it may be, I just kind of let it go. And I try not to think too hard on it, because the day has to keep going. And so it's like I even do this thing sometimes where I'm just like I'll literally just, you know,
Brush it
li-
off.
brush. Yeah. So
Sometimes you got to do that. Like,
mhm,
it's easy to get caught up on things. And I
mhm,
think it's important to take care of yourself.
right. Absolutely. And I've also just been trying to lounge around, and on weekends and in the evenings, and take um watch TV. I like to watch scary movies, so eat popcorn, watch a scary movie, and just enjoy my time with myself. Um, so that's something I've been trying to do more of, that
That's
I didn't do
crazy.
a lot.
I just think of relaxing and I'm just like, it's so hard for me to do that. It is so hard for me to just sit around and just kind of do
Mhm,
nothing because I feel like I always have to be doing something.
mhm,
But I give you props. And I think that's kind of like your self care is just doing things that you enjoy. Like you said,
mhm,
sitting down, watching a scary movie or eating popcorn or whatever it may be, is just taking that time for yourself is super important, especially when you're a doctorate student and you're working and doing all of these other things that you're doing. It's key to cool down and just take some alone time.
absolutely, absolutely.
So I kind of want to figure this out now because before when we spoke 2 years ago, I think that's so wild that it's been 2 years, but you were very stern in saying that like your passion and your why in life was to inspire students and to teach. So obviously you said that like now like you don't necessarily want to teach anymore, but like you still have that love for it. But what is
Mm.
it now that truly ignites your why?
Ooh, I'm kind
Threw
of
a
still figuring
curveball there.
it out. I think I'm still figuring that one out a little bit, but I do still have an answer. um,
Mhm.
because I believe I know. And what that is, what ignites my why now is it isn't teaching, but it I do still want to inspire students. But I, like I mentioned earlier, I think that looks different than teaching. I think that's more
Mhm.
on a mentorship level, more on an interpersonal mentorship, on one-on-one type of level. So maybe like helping students find internships, working with students, um, having student interns, things like that. I think that those are sort of those align more now with
Mhm.
what my goals are, or in terms of like helping students, aiding students in their endeavors, in their pursuits, career wise. Um, so I One thing I really enjoy a lot of is working in the community. I've always loved volunteering with the chamber. Um,
Mhm.
I've even been asked to speak next I think it's next month. I've been asked to speak um at a school locally in Tuscaloosa, and just speak with the students about um career development, about career pursuits, um and the importance of getting an education, and having an idea sort of like what you want to major in, um, and just sharing my experiences, and talking about how my experiences have sort of helped me to determine what I believe my passion is. So teaching actually did lead me to um, my current passion, which
Mhm.
is pretty much community relations. Um, I really, like I mentioned, I enjoy that a lot. Industry and corporate communications, working in the industry, I think is sort of what I see. But I really enjoy people engagement. I like it, whether it's employee engagement, student
Mhm.
engagement. I enjoy working with people, sort of like on a day to day internally. Um, so
I
yeah,
understand.
but I don't want to box myself into just.
Mhm.
I feel like teaching is definitely something that I still enjoy, but that's no longer the only thing that I see myself
Mhm.
doing.
And I
And
think
I
that's okay because when
mm,
you think about it, it's like it's easy to put ourselves in a box. And
mhm,
like you kind of said, is like you're still figuring out like your
mhm,
why and like your purpose. And I
mhm,
think our whys and our purpose is forever like evolving and changing, right? Like where
mhm.
you're at now is not where you're going to be in 5 years. And
Right.
I think our passions like align so well. Like me, like I'm huge on mentorship and I love giving back to the community and just
Yeah.
making a difference because
Mhm.
right, like we're here, so why not leave the world better than we found it? And
Yeah.
my mentorship with Javier and how that's been
Yeah.
going, but even with coaching and just
Mhm,
helping these boys develop into young men and better
mhm,
soccer players, it's definitely rewarding. And I think like you can find that within education, right?
mhm,
Like you said, like helping students like figure out their career path or what it may be is like there
mhm.
are advisor roles for that. So like academic advisors, those are super important, and there's just so many avenues you could go with that, and I think it's very important. And I think like one thing, like you said, you're about to go talk with the chamber, and I think it's very important is to really tell your story. Like your
Right.
story is unique. Like when
Mhm,
you look back, like just from your old episode, from your first episode
mhm,
was just like you talked about growing up in a small town and how like having the effects of that and how one teacher kind of pushed you into a community college and how that community college changed your trajectory of your entire life. And in
yeah.
reality, like hone in on that because like you have a great story and it deserves to be heard. So go back and listen to it if you haven't. But like I'm saying, like you're so unique and people can relate to you, and that's important. And I want you to remember that is like your story has value. So don't forget that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Of, of course. And I think that's kind of the thing is like you have to remember your worth and that like you can make a difference every single day. It's just you have to be willing to be open and
Mm.
share a piece of you. Not all of you, just a part of you so people can understand who Larry is and your whole journey in life.
Wow, that's powerful. Especially the last thing you said about being willing and open to sharing a piece of you. You don't have to share all of you, but just a piece enough, just a piece of you, just enough for people to sort of understand you, understand
Hmm.
your healing journey or whatever that looks like. So I definitely think that's powerful.
And that's kind of why I have this podcast. It's like
Mhm.
I want to give people this platform to share a piece of them. Like I tell people all the time before I record, it's like you don't have to share what you're not comfortable sharing, right? Not everyone needs to know every little detail about your life. But if they can know enough to have an idea of who you are, then that's all that matters, right?
Yes.
And I think that's the thing is sharing the pieces that you feel are valuable to
Hmm.
help other people.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
I've had such a fun time just catching up with you. It's great to see your face. I know like we're 800 or whatever miles apart. And life gets busy, so we don't talk all the time, but it's always good catching up with you.
Hmm.
I really do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to hop on and just catch up and let everyone know what's been going on with future Dr. Larry Willis II. So, if anyone wants to continue having a conversation with you about anything we might have talked about today, what would be the best way for them to get a hold of you?
The best way for them to get a hold of me would probably be, I mean, I'm linked to my phone. I don't mind, putting my number out there. They can reach me via my cell phone
Oh,
number
you crazy.
my or my Gmail. So those would probably be the best, text or Gmail. Um,
I got you. Do you really want me to put your number out there? How
uh,
about this? You can hit him up on Instagram. How about that?
yeah, that'll work.
If you
Yeah,
have any questions, you can shoot him an Instagram DM or you can send him an email. I will make sure I put the link to his Instagram in the description and also his email as well. Larry, it's been real. I love you, man. It's been a
thank
pleasure
you.
talking to you. And thank you all for listening in. Follow us on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, all the social media platforms. You can find us at Ignite Your Why on all of them. Thank you all for listening in. And always remember, find your purpose and ignite your why. And I'll holla at you later. Peace.